Hi, I'm Minessa Konecky, business coach and social media strategist, and today I'm here to help you figure out how to create your very first online course. Now, I know that it can sound very, very intimidating when you think of it initially. Like, oh my goodness, there is so much content to create. I have so many ideas. I have so many things that I want to share. I have so much that I know and so much that I can help people with, that it can feel very overwhelming right off the bat. The first thing I want to suggest to you is when you are creating a course, start small. It's your first course, which means you're going to be validating your idea. Now, you may have done this or been helping clients with this for a very, very long time, like one-on-one or in person. But one of the issues that arises when you're moving from in-person to online is that a lot of the things that you can do very simply when you are in person or standing in front of someone become slightly more complicated when you're trying to do them online because you're not there to answer every little question that they have. So there are some things that you're going to want to slow down on and maybe put things for later, maybe think about using it as an expanded course. So one of the first things that I want to recommend is start small. There is absolutely nothing worse than spending weeks and months on a course that falls apart because you didn't test it enough. I had a course about 3 years ago, that I ended up making quite a bit of money on, but I also lost about $40,000 in unrealized revenues because I made this mistake. I was trying to do something really big and huge. I had never made a course before, and so I was kind of just blindly going where no one had gone before and running into a lot of walls in the process because I didn't necessarily know the steps that I needed to take. So, when you first get going with live course creation, starting small is important. The next thing is to take the time to research what your audience is interested in or what they're looking for or what their problems are so that you really know what they need. I'd been working with clients for a really, really long time prior to that. And I thought I knew what they needed. Turns out that what they need when I'm sitting right in front of them is sometimes very different from what they need when they're working in their own home. So one of the best things that you can do is listen to your audience and really get an idea of what they're looking for and how you can help them. There is no faster way to sell to someone than for you to have a solution to a problem that they've been bashing their heads against for the last X number of days, 6 months, 4 months, whatever. Listening to what your clients need and want and listening to the words that they use to describe their problems was probably the biggest step that I took in my business to start seeing a change in my revenue and a shift in results in my business. So the thing here is I am an expert in solutions, but my audience, they are an expert on their problems. And so I always recommend using your live platform to ask very specific questions that will give you a better read on what your audience is looking for. So let me give you some examples. So first is that you can ask your audience, what are you struggling with right now? What are the biggest questions that you have about whatever area it is that your area of expertise in? So for me, it would be social media. What are the biggest questions that you have about Facebook? What are the biggest questions that you have about going live? What are the biggest questions that you have about growing a business online? Or have you ever wanted to learn about Facebook? Why or why not? So think about questions that you can ask your audience that will give you some ideas about what you might be able to create your course on. This is assuming that you don't already have an idea or that you're looking for a way to narrow it down because you think it might be too broad. Even if you're 100% positive that you know what you want to do your course on, I would still recommend testing it, doing this kind of market research so that you can make sure that what you think your audience needs is in alignment with what they actually need. All right, so that's the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to want to learn this information from your audience. Now, where I recommend looking for this is creating a survey and emailing past clients. You can ask on your personal profile wall, what are you struggling with right now, and just see what people say. If you're looking for something more specific, so if you say, what are you struggling with right now, you might get, if you're a life coach, you might get questions about nutrition, right? And you're like, well, that's not really my game. So if you want to make it a little bit more specific, so what are you struggling with right now regarding stress? What are you struggling with right now regarding Facebook? What are you struggling with right now regarding nutrition? Whatever it is, you can be a little bit more specific. There is no harm in going very, very specific. The only thing that I would recommend is to not reference like your business and try to guide them too far. So don't say, are you looking for a way to use Facebook to create ads for your customers? That is such a specific question that you're not actually going to get their problems. They're just going to say yes or no. So you really want to give them the freedom to be able to respond and say, I am struggling with, this is my biggest question about Facebook. and let them say most of the words. Don't ask questions that are yes, no answers, because then you're going to get yes, no answers, and you're going to feel like you didn't really get the value that you were looking for from those questions. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to ask your audience, what is it that they are that they need help with? Now, some examples of this, and I pulled like 4 random industries. I picked a watercolor painting. Let's say that you are an expert painter. If you sell fashion or beauty products, business coaching, and live streaming. So these are 4 areas that would be relevant in some way, shape, or form to whoever is watching this, whether you have a skill that you want to impart to people, whether you sell products, whether you are helping other people to find or realize their best selves, or streaming. So those are the 4 tips, that the segments that I selected. So a question that you may ask is, what scares you most about painting with watercolors? What are the biggest questions you have about contouring for fashion and beauty products? Business coaching, have you ever wanted to learn about Facebook ads? How do you believe they'll help you? How do you believe they will help you? Gives the opportunity for your audience to share that information. Why haven't you investigated Facebook ads before? That means somebody's going to have to really think about, what is the reason why I didn't do this before? And they'll have to give you that information. When they tell you, oh, well, I haven't because I'm scared of spending too much money. Oh, I'm scared of not getting the right information, or I'm scared of doing it wrong. Now you know where you can help them. And then for streaming, what holds you back from live streaming? So that would be a question that I would ask you, right? So this is a question that BeLive would ask you. What is holding you back? And one of the things that was probably holding you back was the fact that I would love to live stream, but I have no idea how to teach a course on live streaming. I don't know how to bring my audience onto lives. This is a really great tool that BeLive has created to show you step by step, okay, this is the problem that our audience has. They're not sure how to build a course on live streaming. How do we create a solution that will help them? We'll get a bunch of experts together, have them put together a training, and deliver that to you. So that is how you can use the question and answer to figure out what it is that you want to deliver to your audience. Now, once you have figured out, okay, so now you've got these questions. So like, we've asked the questions, we've discovered that, okay, they've answered them. The next question is, how do we turn this into a course? Because you're gonna have a lot of different answers. So the first thing that you're going to want to make sure that you're doing is have a document or a Google Doc or a Word document or a Trello or something that you're using to keep track of all of this content and all this information. There's a lot of information that's going to come through here. You're going to have a lot of trouble keeping track of it. Make sure that you have a master document where you're keeping all this information. Decide again for yourself how big you want the course to be. Be wary of creating a monster. So when you start, you're going to start with something narrow. Okay, I'm going to help them figure out, how to pick the right pigments for watercolor. And then as you're going into it, you're going to discover that, oh, I can teach them this, and I can teach them this, and I can teach them this. Always rein yourself in as much as you can. They don't need to learn everything. If you give your audience all the information all at once, 1, they're not going to have a reason to come back to you. But 2, they'll get overwhelmed. I don't know about you, but when I am faced with a lot of information, my brain shuts off. It's like I feel like it's too much. There's not enough time for me to assimilate it all. I feel like it's going to take me forever to figure this out, and it almost becomes not worth the effort that I need to put in. This is what your audience will experience if you give them too much information right at the outset. So if you're creating a course for a beginner, then make sure that you're focusing on the beginner stuff and save all of the intermediate stuff for later. If you're focusing on a course for advanced users, don't go back to the beginner part and talk about how to pick out pigments and how to pick out brushes. Assume that they already know that, because if they don't, they can go learn it from some of your free content. Also, be sure to use your resources. This is really, really big as you are building your framework for your course. Udemy is an absolute gold mine of information. If you do a search in Udemy for some of the keywords that you're looking for in general when you're trying to figure out what the structure of your business, your course should be, you're going to find an enormous number of courses very similar to what you are creating, which should not be a reason not to create it. There are tons and tons of courses on how to use Facebook ads. There are tons and tons of courses about how to be a social media coach and how to use social media. But what I offer is unique. And I know that what I offer is unique to my particular audience. So I'm not concerned with what other people are doing, but I am aware that looking at the structure that other people have in their courses gives me an idea of how I might be able to structure mine, what things I can get rid of, what things I can add. Udemy is a fabulous resource to learn more about course structures so that you don't feel like you have to figure everything out from scratch right off the bat. I use templates, and I use other content across the internet as inspiration. I tend to just make little notes about things that I liked and things that I didn't like. The things that end up being too big for my course end up going into a folder called Dream My Business to Life. It's my Dream My Business to Life list. It's basically a list of all the things that I know that I want to do in the future to help grow my business. That might be bigger courses, more signature courses, maybe they're more expensive, something that I would like to add, a quiz, maybe a freebie, whatever it is. But these are things that I don't necessarily have time for at this moment, or it doesn't fit in with what I'm doing right now. But I know that I don't want to forget about it. Put it on your Dream My Business to Life list and come back to it later on. Okay, so, all right, so now you've got all of, you're figuring out how you're going to store your content. We have talked about asking your audience for what they're struggling with. And then you want to take all of their answers, legit take all of their answers and make one long list of all of the problems that they're having. Okay, so now you're going to have a very long list of all of their issues. These are some example issues that I came up with using my own surveys, using questions from Udemy, just ideas that I came up with. So these are some of the things that I've known that my clients struggle with, or my clients' clients struggle with, that I'm sharing with you here. When you have this list, go through that list and figure out where you can provide value. What is it that you think that you're looking at? Like when you look at this list, what is it that excites you, that ignites your desire to help train, desire to help people grow their businesses? Because each of the items on this list could be a full course on its own, or it could be a whole section within the course. But some of these topics are so big, you're not going to be able to make one tiny course out of it. You might need to break it up into other courses. But only you know your business well enough to know that a certain answer is going to be too big or too small. So for example, if we're looking at business coaching, work-life balance, right? Or finding new customers, using social media. Let's look at understanding marketing and ads. Understanding marketing and ads is a huge, huge course. I could put together probably a 2-month course, 8 weeks, couple $1,000 that would help people to understand marketing and ads. But that's not really what the goal is for this particular course. We're looking to get a course out there fast and quick so that you can keep your business going while we're dealing with all of the stuff that's going outside in the world. So for that, you're going to want something smaller. Only you know your business, so only you will be able to make that decision for yourself. But the thing that I want to recommend is as you're looking at it, as you look at the list of problems that you have, don't dismiss something just because it looks large. So for example, understanding marketing and ads, that's really, really big. But I could do one like Facebook ads without tears, right? So that's my ads course. It's a small course. It teaches you the basics of setting up your very first ad. So it's not going to help you understand everything about marketing and ads, but it is a 1-week course that you can do pretty quickly that helps you figure out how to use Facebook ads, right? That's it. It's one small segment of a larger problem that people are having. So if you have somebody who says that, they're the mechanics of how watercolors work, for example, and you're like, oh my God, there's so many different things that I could teach on the mechanics, but then I wouldn't be able to talk about, the pigment. And so you're like, you know what, I'm going to save that for later. And I'm just going to focus on getting started with watercolors and talk about the absolute basics, brushes, colors, what kind of paper you want to use, light, just do some very basic. And then I can always create the mechanics later and figure out how I'm going to break that up later on. But the key here, again, I'm going to repeat this multiple times, is to narrow down as much as you possibly can. Now, once you have already gone through this list, so you'll notice that I have some of these italicized. These were the ones that I said, okay, these would be good ideas for small courses on their own. So for watercolor painting, getting started with watercolors for beginners. So that becomes the course if you're teaching watercolors. Fashion and beauty products. The problem that people have is that their clothes don't fit them properly. As we talked about up here, clothes not fitting properly, that's something that they struggle with. So the course that you might create might be dressing your body shape. Business coaching, the one that I italicized here, I selected because this is my favorite, and this is something that I can put together pretty quickly, is work-life balance. So for me, Reclaim Your Schedule, which is an actual training, that is, and there's a link, we have a link provided for this so you can see what it looks like. I put that together, and that's a course. For streaming, the production studio software. So for example, if you have a lot of courses that you've worked on in person and now you want to go and stream them online and you're not sure how to do that because you don't know how to use the production studio software, you could create a course that says, hey, this is how you use BeLive, which is also an actual course that I have, and the link is also provided. So you can see how I took the steps that I'm talking about here and turn them into courses. And you can do the exact same thing for your business as well. Okay, so now that you've narrowed it down, you said, okay, I've got my business coaching. So now that you've narrowed it down, now you're going to be focusing more on the course itself. Now, do you want this course to be live and then gone? Nah. Okay, back that up. Okay. So now that you've narrowed it down and you figured out, okay, this is what my course is going to be on, the next step is to create your outline. So when you design your course outline, you want to take the topic. So we're going to use the BeLive training that we talked about here, your BeLive training. We're going to talk about that. What steps would someone have to take to solve this problem, to figure out how to use BeLive, to figure out how to dress their body style, to figure out their work-life balance? What are the steps they would need to take? Each of those steps that they would need to take, those become a module in your training. So if it's 4 steps, then there's 4 modules. If there's 5 steps, then there's 5 modules. So whatever the steps are that someone would need to take to resolve the issue is going to be the modules of your course. Now, if you're not sure how to answer, like, oh my God, what is the next step? Then imagine that a client is standing in front of you, specifically talking about how do I use BeLive, right? What's the first question they would ask is, how do I sign up? How do I set it up? Great, so we start with that. That's gonna be our first module. When I'm done with that first module, the next question that you wanna ask is, okay, what's my next step? And write that out. And as you go through, just keep asking yourself, what's my next step? What's my next step? And you will fill in the process of this process for solving the problem simply by answering questions. Something that I learned from Julie Eason, who's brilliant woman, is that our brains are hardwired to want to answer questions. So if you start with a question that you're even asking yourself, you will automatically write the response for it because your brain is designed to do that. When you have a collection of all of the steps, then now you have, okay, these are my 4 steps that I'm going to need to take to become an expert in water, to understand how to do watercolors, or to learn how to use BeLive, or to have some work-life balance. You can figure out what you want to call the headings and how you want to organize them once you have everything written down. But once you have it written down, now you have the bare bones of your course, and you can start playing around with structure and graphics and things like that. But the truth of the matter is, until you have figured out your outline for your course, all of that other stuff is superfluous. It's the fun, sexy stuff, the making the graphics, the organizing, the finding the place to put it, the promotion, the going live. All those things are great and they're super fun. The issue that you will run into 100% is going to be, you want to do the sexy things. And so a lot of these very important foundational steps will get left behind. And I know that it sucks. Like for me, I'm a graphic designer. I've been designing since I was 18 years old. It is my favorite thing in the world to do. I love my branding, so I love creating graphics for it. And I could spend hours and hours doing it. The problem is that I don't need to spend hours and hours doing it. And sometimes spending hours and hours doing it before you have done the outline is a waste of time, because then when you go through the outline, you'll realize that you want to do a whole set of different things that you thought you were going to do originally, and now you have to redo everything. So doing your outline first is the most important step. Now, what I want to show you now is an example of how I would break down each of these courses if I was going to teach them on a live stream. So the first one is watercolor painting, and the problem was getting started with watercolors, and the course is called Watercoloring for Beginners. So things that you'd want to go over are basic materials, pigment, brushes, surfaces, etc., application techniques, color and composition, landscapes, and portraits. Now there is a link here to a Udemy course that you can take a look at that's on Udemy that basically has some of these similar structures, but I use that as my model for this kind of course. Now I'm not going to go take her course and then just mimic the whole thing. I'm an expert in my own field, which obviously is not watercoloring, so I will create my own course based off of this structure. So you're not going to go into their course and say, okay, these are all the things they're teaching, so I'm just going to copy everything they're doing. What you're trying to get an idea of is a logical structure that makes sense to you, and then you're going to go in and fill the answers with your own area of expertise, whatever it is that you know how to do, which is why I strongly recommend picking something that you feel passionately about, that you already feel like an expert in, and that you've been doing for a while, because the answers that are going to flow out of you will be they'll flow out a lot easier for you than they would if you were trying to put together a course about something that you don't know a lot about and you're kind of just trying to force it, because that's going to take you 10, 12 the amount of time, because you're going to now have to become an expert and then also create the course. Now, if you're doing fashion and beauty products, clothes not fitting properly, that was the problem, and the solution is dress your body shape. Why clothes matter, different body types, because you got to figure out your body shape, understanding signature styles, proportions, scale, fabric lines, colors, and prints, using what you have and getting what you need so that you're saving money and spending money, and then how to save money, what to buy, what not to buy. So this again has a course in Udemy, which will show you how to become a stylish and well-dressed woman. I picked that as the example because it actually had a really, really good structure. The third thing is work-life balance, reclaim your schedule. This is an actual training that I put together. My modules are: one is identify what you're doing in your day. So this is a PDF handout that you can download. It's free. One is identify what you're doing in your day. Two is categorize what you're doing according to your life goals. So if your life goals, like you're like, my most important thing in my life is to spend time with my kids, or my most important thing is to spend time with my husband, or for me to spend time meditating, or to exercise, or to be healthy and do the things that require that make me healthy. Let's say those are the things that are important to you, and you discover that, much to your shock, you're not doing any of those things. You're doing all the things for work. You're spending all your time away from your family, away from taking care of yourself. You're not feeling super healthy. You've realized then that you have not structured your schedule according to the way that you want to live your life. So that's why the second one is categorize it according to your life goals. Eisenhower's matrix of prioritization. This is the best prioritization tool I have ever found. It's modeled after Dwight Eisenhower's prioritization structure. I've been using it for probably about 10, 15 years now. I can't even remember when I started using it because I've been using it for such a long time. It is a game changer in terms of prioritization. Then prioritizing your actual activities. We'll show you how to use that tool to prioritize, and then outsourcing and delegating for things that they're not the things that you really need to be working on, that's costing you money right now. So that's my Reclaim Your Schedule training. I recommend that you download it so you can see how I took the problem, the solution, and created a free download out of that. I also have a BeLive training on Direct to Success. This is a free training that you can access also. So the problems that my audience was having was that they didn't know how to use BeLive to grow their business, or frankly, just use BeLive at all. So I put together a training that first talks about how you use live video for business, overcoming your fear of live video. What should you talk about in your live videos? Selecting your production software, which in this case is BeLive, and then tools to make your live go a lot easier. These are me going into the BeLive tools and showing you how you would use each of these tools to capture your audience's attention, different ways that you might want to apply them, stuff like that. So you have access to that course. You can go take a look at it and see how I put it together. Okay. Now, when you're doing all of this, the few things that I really want to encourage you to do, one is, as I said before, start small, very, very small, okay? Use your dream list, okay, to house everything that doesn't fit into this course that you're like, oh, I really want to do it sometime. I'm so excited about this. That's great that you're excited about it. Put it on your Dream My Business to Life list. You do not need to do everything right now, and as long as you don't write it down, you're going to keep it as a hornet in the back of your head. Which means that when you're doing everything, you're like, oh yeah, I need to remember to do that thing. I need to remember to do that thing. I need to remember to do that thing. You don't want to have that hornet in the back of your head. When you have that hornet in the back of your head, what it actually acts like is apps that are on in the background of your phone. So you know how like when you sometimes your phone is just, the battery is just draining like crazy. You're like, why is my battery draining like this? When you take a look at it, you find you have 5 or 6 apps that were running in the background, and you're like, I didn't turn those apps on. I didn't know that they were on. And you turn them off, and suddenly you have so much more energy on your phone. The same thing holds true for your brain and your body. If you have unfinished business, your body will actually reserve energy for you to keep thinking about it so that you don't forget, because it thinks that you want to remember. And our body is programmed to remember unfinished things. If you put it on your Dream My Business to Life list, 1, you won't forget it because you know that it's there. And 2, then you give your subconscious brain permission to forget about it. And so you're turning off that app in your brain so that now you're using your energy towards the things that you want them to be going on. You're not using your energy for things that like you don't even know are existing right now. Whatever you're researching will make you feel like your course is gigantic and you're going to have all these ideas. That is an illusion. Maintain a laser-like focus on solving the actual problem. People don't want to know everything. I know that you feel like they need to know everything, but if you really think about it, they don't. No one needs to know everything. We all just want to know enough to be able to get the job done and not make any huge, colossal mistakes. That's what you're learning in this course. This is not going to teach you how to create your next signature course that you can sell for $3,000, but it is going to get you started in the right direction so that 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months down the line, when you want to grow and you're like, I'm ready now, you will have already done this a few times and you won't be as unsure about the process. At that point, it'll be about scaling it up. So you'll notice that this course is we're not teaching you the nitty gritty of every little thing that you need to know about creating every single course ever. Because again, that's a very long course. We're giving you what you need to know so that you can get going. And you want to give the same thing to your audience because right now, time is of the essence. They don't have time to learn everything about everything. They need to know what they need to know to be able to move their business forward and nothing more right now. You can always create a more expensive course later on down the line that has way more detail in it. And because they've already taken this one course with you, they will be more inclined to spend money on a different course. Okay, so now let's think about logistics. All right, so here's where you want to really think about how this applies to your life and your business. The first is, how much time do you want to spend on your course? So when you're creating it, the more complexity you add to it, the more time you're going to need to spend on it. So how much time do you reasonably have to devote to creating this course? Be mindful about the other things that you're doing in your life, the other stuff that is taking up time in your day. I would suggest downloading the Reclaim Your Schedule handout because that will help you to figure out where this fits in. But for the most part, you're really just going to know how much time you want to spend on the course and when you want to launch. If you want to launch next week, then you're going to need to spend a lot of time on this course. And frankly, I wouldn't suggest starting a course and launching it next week. A lot of people do that, and it's really bad for your psyche. It's really bad for your body. And what you produce usually doesn't end up being very good anyway. Give yourself time to create your course. Why do you want to launch it on that day? Why, right? Now, this is really important. And oftentimes business owners don't think about this, but it's an arbitrary date. So I've often set arbitrary dates for launches. So for my Roadmap to Success signature course, my arbitrary date that I set was January 1st of last year. And I was like, all right, I'm going to sell it. I'm going to start selling it on January 1st. We're going to start doing the course in February. And I was like, that's when I'm going to do it. And it's a really big course, right? So of course it was going to take me a lot of time to put together. And I said this, I believe in September or October of 2018. Oh my God, I can't even remember, 2018, yep. But when I started to put together the plan, I realized that for me to get it done by January 1st or even February 1st, I was going to have to hustle like I'd never hustled before. But that's not my jam. I'm not a hustle culture type person. I want to live my life, enjoy my life, and have a calm, reasonable business that doesn't make me, feel like I'm constantly on the edge of a mountain, getting ready to be pushed off, right? That's not the kind of business I'm trying to run. I want to run a business that lets me stroll leisurely through my day. And so for me, I knew immediately that was going to be a mistake. So why did I pick February? Well, because I wanted to get in with the January rush. And I was like, because, new year, new you, new business, what have you. What I ended up doing was I moved it forward to around April for the tax season, because then people would be getting tax returns and they'd be able to buy the course then. I made that change because I realized that first date I had set was arbitrary. It was not a date that was set in stone. I picked that date. I can change it at any time. And when I realized how long it would take for me to put together a course, I was able to scale it out. I want to encourage you to do that because that's what's going to give you the awareness of how long it takes you to do things so that you don't feel like, okay, I can do it in January, no problem. And then you look at your calendar and you realize January is 4 weeks away. That's not going to, or like right now, if you did it right now, you're like, oh, I can have it done by April. Well, April is 3 days away. Not really April. Can you do it by May? How big of a course are you trying to put together? If it's a smaller course, sure, you can put it together by May. If you're trying to put together a signature course, I wouldn't recommend it. So that's really what you want to be thinking about is when you want to launch, why you want to launch it on that day, and be conscious of the time that you need to spend doing other things as well. Homeschooling your kids, making sure that, dinners are cooked, taking care of the house, working on other things for your business, reading, learning, researching, watching TV, all the other things you have going on in your life. Make sure that you're taking those things into consideration when you pick your launch date. When you're thinking about price points, also consider now, later. Like if you right now charge $19.99 for something, you say it's $19.99, then you basically set the price for that at $19.99, which means your audience is going to think that's what the value of that product is. The fact of the matter is your product and your knowledge has a lot more value than you know, because you've spent years learning enough about your business so that you can disseminate that information to your audience in a short course. It takes a lot of expertise to take something complicated and make it into a short course. That's a lot. Make sure that you are charging what the value is of the course, and don't let your underlying beliefs about money and worth and value don't get caught up in that. If you want to sell for less, what I recommend doing is, especially in this environment where, you know, we're all trying to be kind and thoughtful about our communities and make sure that we're not, you know, placing an undue heavy burden on them, is price it higher and then discount it down so that the value is still there. They can see what that value is, but they know that they're paying less. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're training your audience to think that the value that you're offering is less. So when they now go to someone else who actually knows what the value of what they're doing is, and they see $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for whatever the product is, they'll be shocked and surprised. Oh my God, well, so-and-so only charges me this much, but so-and-so doesn't know their value. It's not because that's what the course is worth, it's because they don't know their value. They should be charging you more. So it creates unrealistic expectations on everybody's front. And then ultimately, it's actually going to result in you feeling really bitter and frustrated because you're going to keep pricing things very, very low for your audience because that's where you started. And then ultimately, you end up in a situation where you feel like they may not necessarily know the value. So what I really recommend always is price high, discount down low. Price high, discount down low. So you can discount down to whatever you want it to be, but really be conscious of the fact that you are doing more than simply pricing your product. You are also telegraphing the value of your product. You're also training your audience to understand what your product and your content is worth. So know your worth. Creating your course. Okay, so these are the last two things that are like super important. Creating your course is only the first step. After you've created your course, the next thing you're going to need to do is market it. So if you are planning on launching your course in April, you're going to need to have a 7 to 10 day marketing plan that starts March 20th, right? Well, we've already passed March 20th. So that means that you're not necessarily going to be able to get it when you want it. You're not going to be able to launch it when you want. Let's say you say May, right? I want to do it in May. And so you say, okay, I'm going to start marketing it at the end of April. That's great. Make sure that you're planning for that as well, because that's going to be something that takes up time too. So when you're putting together your list of when you want to launch and how much time you're going to need to spend on your launch, that's another thing that you want to consider is how long is it going to take you to put this together? And then how much time do you need to put together the promotional content? Do not skip that step. If you skip the promotional content step, you're going to spend a lot of time creating a beautiful product that no one's ever going to buy because they're never going to know that it exists. This is a step that many business owners skip altogether, and they like put the whole thing together and then they launch it the day before it's supposed to start, and then they're wondering where everybody is. You will need to have a promotional schedule. You'll need to spend a lot of time promoting. You're going to need to use your email list, your Facebook, your Instagram, your social media. You will need a campaign to market this. Give yourself time to set up the campaign. Now, you can do all this stuff in tandem really easily, but make sure that you are carving time out for it. So I don't want to make it sound like you can't do all this stuff at the same time. You can actually do this fairly quickly. The things that are going to hold you back are going to be how much time you spend overthinking. The process and the steps will take you less time. The overthinking is what takes all the time. You overthink less, you can get these things done a lot quicker than you think. You overthink more, it's going to be 6 months from now and you're still going to be creating this course. So it's not so much that it's a lot of work and that's what takes up the time, because it does, but the time is amplified and it goes to 11, 12, 13, 14 when you start adding in that overcomplication. For creating your first course, you can create the outline and the whole course faster, you can do it slow. But the key to remember is that there's always a result and a price for every choice that you make. So if you choose to go quickly, then you'll have a lot of problems that you can troubleshoot when you run it. So for example, my Facebook Ads Without Tears course, I put it together fairly quickly. And I knew that I was going to run into some issues and I'm just fixing them on the fly. As long as you're okay with that and you don't mind having to make these fixes on the fly, you're totally fine. But if you expect to hit your course out of the park with no problems and a course that you put together in like 20 minutes, you're going to be disappointed regardless of what your results are. Maintaining a practical approach to balancing your expectations is the most effective way to build a course. Now, I love where my business is at today. I loved where it was 2 years ago. Like I loved where my business was 2 years ago. I love where it's at today. But if you look at everything that I've created over the last 3 years, you can actually see the progression. You can see it. You can tell when I figured out certain things. You can tell when I started using BeLive. You can tell when I understood the value of having a great studio. You can tell where I realized I was going too broad in all of the things that I was offering. You can tell when I was overwhelmed, and you can tell when I found new tools. All of that is evident in everything that I create if you know what to look for. And as you go through all my videos, if you want to just head down to like the Direct to Success business page, check on the videos section and scroll all the way back to the beginning and just scroll up, right? And watch the videos themselves. You will see the videos change. You'll see my hair change. You will see my confidence change. You'll see my backdrop change. You will see my business evolve in the video snapshots that you see. Do not feel like you have to do everything all at once. Consider this an iterative process, because every single thing that you create, starting with this course and starting with anything that you've done before, is an experiment. Be mindful and remain confident, and you will do just fine.